Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Legacy Tour Huntsville. My name is Zachary Cuck. I'm your host. I'm joined today by my co-host, Lane Fox.
Hey, how's it going?
Today we'll be viewing 5 rounds of Legacy action, followed by a top 8. Our first feature match is already underway, where you can see Will Cruse on the left playing 4-color Delver against J.C. Goldman on the right playing Temur Delver.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how this goes. I like seeing Will on Delver. I got a chance to catch him whenever he was on Star City Games, and I'm interested
I think
to see
he
if
top
he
8'd
runs
the Invitational there.
Yeah,
right?
see if he runs something similar.
Yeah, I think this is pretty much the exact list he ran there. It looks like he's opening on a Ponder.
Yeah.
In any event, yeah, these are...
Let's see, did he... Well, there's some updates. I do see the Tassiger, on the list.
Oh, right,
yeah.
right.
So
Since his top 8, sure.
Yeah, so it's been a... So, all right, so he's leading on the Ponder, yeah.
Couldn't tell. I didn't get a look at his hand, but he may be hunting for land.
Yeah. Now, I can't remember if JC was on Temur Delver or Grixis Delver last time.
At the last event, the last Legacy Tour, he played Grixis, but he's on Temur today.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Well, and JC won the last one, right?
Yes, yeah. JC was the winner at the last Legacy Tour, and he's looking to repeat here today.
Yep, leading on the Volcanic.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if he's got a turn 1 play. Let's
There
take a look at the hand. Oh, I see a spell.
Well, that's actually that's the hand cam for Will Cruse. I think it's on the wrong side. We'll get that adjusted for you, but we're gonna see if he actually is missing a land drop. And brainstorming before playing a land sort of indicates that JC's got the spell pierce to stop him. So he must have the read here that Will is missing a land, and sure enough, there he misses the land drop.
The land drop. That's pretty rough. Especially because he didn't really lead with any sort of, pressure too, on the first turn. Right,
so his hand must be really reactive. It looks like he's got a Lightning Bolt, maybe a pair of Force of Wills. Couldn't really see the rest of it.
And JC does hit his... I always hate situations like this because you're already up a card and you lose that tempo of, being ahead on a land going first. So I always hate missing my land drops whenever I'm going first.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely.
So,
and against a deck that is running Wastelands, they can really just put you down to nothing.
Yeah.
And in this case,
oh man, so let's see what's coming down here. It looks like it's a Tarmogoyf. So I guess we're
sorcery instant land. It's already a 3/4, so it's out of bolt range.
Yeah, out of bolt range.
Yeah, this is gonna be tough for Will to deal with. I don't know if he has any. I mean, look, I don't think he has any main deck ways. No, he's just got Lightning Bolts. So Tarmogoyf's a tough one to answer for Cruse's deck.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, what happened there? Did I miss?
I think it got Force of Will.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure that out. I thought it looked like a Spell Pierce for some reason.
No, I think that was the card exiled, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Will did find a land drop in a Flooded Strand. He's going for an Underground Sea. So we've got a little bit of glare on the left side.
Yeah. Things are looking a little bit better for Will here. Especially with JC tapping out for the Tarmogoyf. Still feels right. That's a nice play. I like seeing the Deathrite Shaman.
And this is really the crux of why it's 4-color Delver, because I think outside of Deathrite Shaman, there's very little that isn't just Grixis in this deck. Now maybe the sideboard has a few red or reddish options, but main deck it's mostly just Grixis with green to activate Deathrite Shaman, which has sort of become the norm.
Yeah, and I think that becomes important. It opens up your sideboard a whole lot.
Right, yeah, actually I think the green splash, a lot of times they have the main deck Tropical Island to activate Deathrite Shaman's green ability, the life gain one. But I think really the important part is, you can almost run it without the green mana. The really important part is being able to sideboard all the hate cards, like things like Ancient Grudge and Abrupt Decay are really nice when you have them out of the sideboard and you need the green mana for those.
See if he gets bolted. I get a feeling he's going to. Maybe? I don't know.
So JC pondered, I assume.
He pondered first.
He hasn't played a land.
Oh. There goes his Wasteland. I think he's going to take out the Underground.
Volcanic.
Oh, the Volcanic.
Right, the untapped mana source in this case. Will floats a mana,
Okay.
but if JC, I think JC just went to the combat step to get rid of the floating mana.
All right, so Will's right back to a little bit to where he was before. It's kind of like seeing last turn minus Tarmogoyf.
Right.
So, and then Will also having to lose that extra card to that Force of Will, it just really hurts him as well too, because now he's down like 2 cards to JC.
Oh yeah, well, Force of Will's sort of the necessary evil of Legacy. What do we have here? A Cabal Therapy?
Oh, what do you think he's naming?
A creature, if I had to guess. Looks like he missed. There's a Scalding Tarn, a Ponder, and a Dismember. So he's got... See, now JC has removal that does deal with Tarmogoyf. Although Will Cruse doesn't play a Tarmogoyf, he does have 1 main deck Tasigur, which that's good against. Along with, all the other creatures, Deathrite, Young Pyromancer, Delver Secrets.
Yeah.
But anyway, he has no follow-up threats.
But he did hit his land drop, so that's good. He's got his Volcanic right there.
Yeah, I think that was the draw for the turn, so that's good.
I think he situated his Ponders so that, or was, I don't know, he missed the 1 land drop, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember. But
yeah, because that was the first. There goes a Ponder from JC. What do you think he's digging for here?
Threats.
Threats.
He has a Scalding Tarn, so if he needs green mana, he can go get another Tropical Island. And he has a removal spell in Dismember, plus I don't know what his draw for the turn was, but so he already has a removal spell and an extra land drop, so all he really wants now is something to attack with. I think that probably the best thing he can find in this case is either another Tarmogoyf or probably Nimble Mongoose is even better since he's definitely met Threshold by now, and that's really difficult for Cruse's deck to answer. Looks like instead we're just going to go Pondering again. This is the signature or the hallmark of a team of any Delver deck, not just Temur, is spin your wheels until you find a threat, right? Just cantrip, cantrip, cantrip.
Yeah, I can tell. I know I must be a little bit nervous on that Scalding too. I don't know if Will's running Stifle too.
He is not.
He's not.
I think JC is. Temur Delver definitely.
Yeah,
definitely likes
JC.
to run it.
Yeah, he rolls with the Stifle.
So it looks like JC did find a threat on top of the deck, but he waited a turn to play it, I guess, so he would have open mana available to get into a counter fight if there was a Spell Pierce or a Force of Will or a Daze. And actually, something you alluded to earlier was Will having to burn a card essentially to play his Force of Will, and that's actually a pretty noticeable cost in these Delver mirrors.
Yeah,
there's the Dismember we saw earlier, so JC's going to pay the full. Well, he doesn't have any black mana sources, so that's the full 4 life to cast it, but it does deal with the Delver Secrets. Anyway, the Force of Will is sort of a necessary evil in Legacy that you have to have it in order to combat some of the hyper aggressive or really fast combo decks. But it's actually really terrible in these kind of Delver mirrors because usually what these mirrors come down to is a resource attrition battle, and you don't want to be the guy 2-for-1ing yourself just to deal with your opponent's 1 card. Since most of the cards are not a huge impact and they don't win the game, on their own. I think, given the way Will's main deck is set up, he doesn't really have a choice but to have Force of Wills because he doesn't have an answer to Tarmogoyfs.
Yeah,
like he has to.
That's a good point.
I'm not sure if after sideboard he'll have anything better either. It doesn't look like it. So he's probably going to be stuck keeping his Force of Wills even in the post-board games where they're, you really would prefer not to have them, but he just can't answer a Tarmogoyf otherwise. So
things are looking pretty rough right now.
Yeah, that the Mongoose, even if Will had removal, I think JC's probably got enough counter spells or protective measures, and you can't kill it anyway.
Yeah, I see a Daze in Will's hand.
Yeah, Will's going to need to find
Yeah.
Something to stop it. At least trade with it, maybe. I don't know.
Oh. What do you think he's digging with here?
Pardon?
Or what do you think JC's digging for here at this point? He's
Actually,
nice and stable. And
couldn't be sure. I mean, I guess it's possible he just wants to spend his mana while it's available. Although Brainstorm being an instant sort of implies that he might have something he wants to do this turn.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he really doesn't have to respond. Unless, of course, he's digging. I guess maybe he could be digging for a Wasteland, which would really seal the deal in this case.
that would be really tough for Will right now.
Yeah. Anything else, I don't really see him needing much. You know, he's got the threat that's hard to answer, and he's probably got a grip full of permission. I can't imagine he has much need for anything else.
So if you get the Wasteland, what do you take out? You think you take out the Underground?
Yep, definitely, because it's the one that's most likely to play a creature that matters.
Yeah.
Or there's Young Pyromancer. There's a card that definitely matters.
Yeah,
it's like JC's got a response though. Oh, the hardcast days. Yeah, I don't see how Will's coming back, and he doesn't either. That's just a little too much. A little too much to overcome, given what probably is in JC's hand at this point.
Yeah. You know, I do like to see JC running the Dismember here, actually. That's not something I see a lot of Temur Delver players actually play.
I think that's sort of a response to cards like Tasigur and Goldman.
Yeah, they're opposing Tarmogoyf.
Anyway, we're going to take a second here to talk about the next Legacy Tour Huntsville coming up on February 13th. That's just about a month away.
Yeah.
It's going to be hosted this time at JC's House of Cards. And it's worth noting there is a price increase. It used to be a $10 tournament. It's going up to $15 because the tournament organizer is looking to give out bigger prizes. You know, the last couple they've all been sort of, you know, Force of Will, $100-ish prizes, and they really like to step it up to legacy relevant lands like some of the blue dual lands and so on.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll move on to the sideboards. I've got Will Cruse's. I think I'll start. Let's see what do you think. What do you think we'll bring in here? He's got 2 Electricity, 1 Izzet Staticaster. I don't really think either of those are very relevant. Pithing Needle, Ancient Grudge, not so much. Red Elemental Blast is probably good. A pair of those, they're good fighting counter wars, or better anyway. And they're definitely relevant against Delver Secrets. Grafdigger's Cage, this isn't the match for that. I don't think Surgical Extraction is what he's really looking for. The 4th Cabal Therapy is probably not relevant here. I mean, he is on the play, so it has a little less value. I actually, Thoughtseize not. There's not a whole Liliana the Veil. Now there's a good card. Like that's actually good in this matchup. It deals with Nimble Mongoose and Tarmogoyf. It'd actually be beneficial if he had more than one, but he doesn't. And then Flusterstorm, I guess, is a better counterspell than Force of Will, but like we mentioned earlier, he just has to have it because he can't deal with Tarmogoyf any other way.
Yeah.
What do you think on JC's side?
On JC's side, it's sort of interesting. I almost don't know what to take out. I know some stuff that I'd like to see in the board. I mean, he's got Pyroblast. I think that can take care of the Delver. That can take care of, you know, of course, fighting any sort of counter war, which I think is really good. I think Tormod's Crypt could come in as well. Even though he didn't see the Tasigur, I would almost think that he's going to play a Grimhog Angler when I just look at that deck. And it can also mess up certain things. I don't know, maybe even his Deathrite Shaman. But yeah, and I don't know what really comes out, though. So, especially being on
in JC's case, I think the best card to take out is, like I was saying earlier, is Force of Will. It's just, you don't want that inherent card disadvantage if you can avoid it.
Yeah, so Force of Will, I think, comes out. I think Tormod's comes in. I think Pyroblast comes in. Maybe even a Flusterstorm.
Yeah, Flusterstorm's good. It's another way to win counter wars and removal wars. Just keep your creatures alive. Although JC, I think, definitely has the upper hand with the creatures in this matchup. Tarmogoyf and Nimble Mongoose are just so difficult for Will's deck to deal with.
What is? I'm sorry. What is Divert? Maybe I'm just...
Divert is 1 blue instant, and it changes the target of a spell with a single target unless its controller pays 2 mana.
So it's like Misdirection, but you don't have to go down a card.
Right. And in these Delver matchups where mana is usually really tight, it essentially is a 1 mana Misdirection. So that's a possible sideboard inclusion as well.
I think that's, yeah, if you're going to bolt something, you can always redirect it to, you know, put him down 2 cards to 1, you know, make him bolt his own Delver. Actually,
Rough Tumble might be a good card to bring in from JC's sideboard as well. It deals with all of Young Pyromancer and his tokens. It's also good against Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Especially now that he's on the play, it's real easy for Will to get ahead, and then all of a sudden he's going a little bit wider, so I could see that as well.
Well, and it's one of the few cards that does the opposite of Force of Will, where it can actually put you up on cards instead of down.
Yeah.
Like you can actually get 2 or 3 for 1s with Rough Tumble, whereas a lot of the cards are just, or the rest of the sideboard is just 1 for 1s.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I would expect to see it, although as a 1-of, it's hard to
yeah,
it's hard to make that come up very often.
Yeah, I'm really liking JC's sideboard just in general. Anyway, I mean, some of the stuff isn't going to be relevant to this matchup, but I'm interested to see how it plays out if we see him go on to be on some of the future rounds as well.
Looks like both of these players are presenting, and we'll get to game 2 here in just a minute.
Trying to figure out the sleeve colors. I always say that you can tell how good a Magic player is by how bland their sleeves look.
You don't like the creature collections or any of those?
No. I mean, they always just wind up peeling.
That's true. Most of the sleeves that have images printed on them, I've found they do peel or they wear out a lot faster.
Yeah, I get my girlfriend telling me a lot. She's like, "Why don't you go with something a little bit more exciting? You've got these weird, just sort of gray, dull." I'm like, but they're good. They're sturdy, and then they work. So.
Yeah, and they don't show wear near as badly usually.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I prefer the Dragon Shield, the matte blue ones, but just because they seem to last longer and they don't gunk up or split near as quickly as the ones with images printed on the back.
Yeah. No style over substance there. It's just all completely functional.
Well, it looks like we are heading to game 2, at least in theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
So Will be on the play again, although he's immediately down to a 6-card hand, and so is JC. Yeah, so much for the beginning game 2.
Maybe they were just psychically reading each other as if these hands have no lands at all. So
in any matchup where you're facing down against wastelands, and like in JC's case with stifles, you have to be very, very conscious of just how much mana you have available, because neither one of them having any basic lands means they can't play around wasteland at all, and in Will's case, not being able to play around stifle very well means he could really find himself in a bind.
Yeah, I feel like the ideal hand is like 2 lands and probably a brainstorm for a Delver player. You have that one to kind of protect the other land, and then another one to kind of dig you into Will's going to be like looking to stay ahead on his lands as much as possible.
Certainly, and I mean Deathrite Shaman helps with that.
Oh yeah,
but Deathrite Shaman's a very susceptible creature too.
It just seems like it's just going to get bolted.
And it looks like Will's going to 5. That hand was even worse.
That is difficult.
Well,
but it's all about tempo.
Right. I guess if he finds a hand, supposing JC comes up with one of the hands that just doesn't have a lightning bolt or removal spell, something like Young Pyromancer can really go a long way to
giving you that those resources right back.
So actually, it looks like Will.
I see a land,
and he is scrying. Well, he's got at least one wasteland, I think, and maybe is that an underground sea? So he has 2 mana sources, although wasteland doesn't do a whole lot for the deck in terms of mana production.
I see a Misty as well.
Oh, maybe that's it. Okay, so with 3 lands, he'd be fine.
Yeah, so I think he's going to lead on the...
There's the underground sea. Yep. And that's probably the safest card to lead on, because if JC wants to lead out on just a wasteland and go back to parity, that's fine also. Here we have a turn 1 Delver of Secrets. Now, I know Will has a daze.
Oh, does he have a daze?
Yeah.
What do you think you do here? You think you stop it on the daze?
Probably not. I think of all the creatures in JC's deck, the easiest one to deal with is Delver of Secrets, that you don't want to burn your counterspells on that. And daze in this matchup is easy enough to get value out of.
Yeah.
Like even as the game goes late, because of the nature of the decks just being so short on mana, that I don't know if I'd use it on a turn 1 Delver.
Yeah. It is kind of hard though to be on the play and then all of a sudden you're having to react to them first. I don't like that aspect. But.
Well, that is the Delver deck. Any Delver deck, that's their whole game plan, is to stick a threat early and then disrupt or interact with your opponent just enough to maintain that threat, to go the distance with just one creature.
It looks like he wastelanded his tropical island.
And the Delver Secrets is going to become Insectile Aberration off of a Lightning Bolt reveal. So that's a pretty good start for JC.
Oh yeah.
His opponent on a mull to 5, and he's already got 1 threat on the table.
And he's refueling on land. So, it's awful rough right now.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe
Huh.
We know Will has at least one more land drop, so maybe he has
Yeah.
Young Pyromancer or something like that to go with it.
I'm surprised actually to not see Will Brainstorm at the end of the turn there.
I think he might be prioritizing having a fetch land to go with it, because getting yourself Brainstorm locked in the Delvermere is pretty much the quickest way to lose a game.
Yeah.
And, if JC wants to fight Daze Wars or Spell Pierces, Will can probably absorb some of that as long as he's got at least one removal spell. Yeah, there's the Brainstorm now. Yeah, this is definitely the more ideal situation to play it in when you can, get rid of the excess
garbage.
cards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although in this case, it'd be hard to decide what's garbage, really.
Yeah.
Because even that Daze looks live when your opponent only has one land. Normally that's the
It looks
kind of
like
card
he's still got the Daze in his hand.
Well, it has a lot of value here.
Yeah. So I don't know what he put on top, but I guess we're about to see it go.
And he's going to fetch, obviously giving some amount of respect to JC's Stifles, although JC's going to fetch in response, it looks like, to avoid potential Stifles from Will.
Yeah.
Although we know Will doesn't have any Stifles, JC doesn't and wants to play around it.
Yeah. I want to say Will ran Stifles in his old list, so I guess he's moved away from them.
Yeah, he's got a pretty creature heavy version of a Delver list with 14 creatures and possibly one or two more out of his sideboard. So
yeah, he's got a whole lot going on, so maybe it just couldn't make room for it.
Yeah, well, it's conflicting because like with a card like Young Pyromancer, you really want to run. Looks like there's a lightning bolt to the face.
Oh,
I feel like that's perhaps a little. Well, I guess he has to because Will knows he has it, but otherwise that seems a little preemptive.
Oh.
And there, JC actually had the opportunity to try and stifle the fetch land, but decided not to. I guess he has bigger plans for the stifle.
So,
I mean, it would have been played right into a Daze, which isn't good, obviously.
Yeah.
But
well, it looks like
now he's still got the mana for those Pyroblasts too. That's a big game, that hand.
Yeah.
We'll see if Will can find some more mana.
Well, he's got pseudo mana there.
Yeah, it's a slow mana source though to have to wait a whole turn when you're staring down a Delver already.
Yeah. I tell you, he's under so much pressure, you almost would.
Oh, yeah, and he found a Fork
that
Bolt.
is really rough.
So the Daze is going to get played. See, that's what I was saying earlier. You still get use out of a Daze even later on in the game, just by nature of how the Delver decks work, where they have to wasteland each other and stifle each other and sort of just use a ton of mana. Here we see a Ponder.
Yeah.
It's a good draw.
And I don't know if JC, if that's one of his forked bolts he brought in from the sideboard. I know he plays one in the main.
It could be either. I'd be almost certain he brought it in, though. It's good against an unflipped Delver, and it's good against Young Pyromancer. Actually, Will having a one main deck Vendilion Click is good against that, too.
Oh, yes.
And if it serves as just removal for a Deathrite Shaman, even that's good. Like, there's a whole lot of use here.
Yeah, I always go by the principle, if you're not spending more mana to kill it than they did to cast it, you're doing pretty good.
It's true.
Preferably less, but if you
that's actually one of the biggest detriments to playing a card like Abrupt Decay in Legacy. Is it's a catch-all answer that is, it's uncounterable, so it's great, but at the same time, it costs 2 mana, and half the time the threats you're going after cost 1, so...
Yeah, so you're spending more, and you're just sort of... I'm trying to even think of the term that we use there for it.
It's mana inefficient, that's for sure. So we've got a Brainstorm from Cruse. I don't know. I see a Young Pyromancer in that stack, and it looks like a Wasteland as well.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that's a good Brainstorm.
Yeah. The thing is it's just so rough here because he's gonna probably lose against that. I feel like you have to do something against that. Yeah.
Well, a Lightning Bolt will deal with the Delver.
Yeah, I was about to say, you don't want to put him in your own bolt range. So.
Exile land from JC's graveyard. Now Will's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
We know he's got a Wasteland next turn. JC has no threat and only 1 land.
Yeah.
Now he's got a Stifle in hand. We know about that, so he doesn't have to worry about losing his land. But if he doesn't come up with some threats or some pressure, the Deathrite Shaman will dig Will Cruse back into this game.
Yeah, Will could really go with some green mana at this point, though.
The life gain aspect, like we mentioned earlier, would be nice. Although JC would have to have running bolts for that to really matter, because without a creature to back him up, the lightning bolts are pretty anemic.
Yeah, well, he knows he has 2 Pyroblasts in hand, and then also the Stifle. So we don't really know what he's been drawing these turns, but I almost see Will getting back into the game here. I don't know.
I think he put the Wasteland as the next card, so that should be the last card in his hand after this Young Pyromancer. I doubt he's going to go for it, though, because he knows about JC's Stifle. Like, it's just losing value to try and use it.
That's a good point.
I mean, you get the Stifle out of JC's hand, but you could also just let it rot in his hand at this point.
Yeah. I guess I'm trying to think of what else he could be going for.
Oh, it's a Surgical Extraction.
Oh my goodness!
I thought there was a Wasteland, but I guess he's going to exile a land just to get the token, and I don't know what we're exiling here. If I had to guess, it would probably be Lightning Bolt. Oh, and JC's willing to fight over it with a pair of Force of Wills. It must mean that the target was very relevant, or it means that the card JC drew for turn is something that was in his graveyard, and he doesn't want to get 2 for 1. You know, you lose the card from your yard, and you'll lose the copy from your hand. Have you ever played a Delver strategy, Lane, in any competitive setting?
No, it's actually the strategy that I'm the most attracted to, just because this is my type of deck. I like to run like blue-based tempo decks. So it's what I'm trying to aim towards, getting good enough at playing. So. But yeah, now if I was going to run something, I really don't know what I would run. Probably just maybe Grixis. I think I like Grixis the most. Yeah,
I think of the Delver decks right currently, Grixis is probably the strongest. Oi, and there was a rough tumble that would have got JC back into this game.
Oh my goodness!
After Cabal Therapying the Stifle, Will was able to Wasteland JC's last land, so it would have to be a pair of running lands now to fight back.
Oh man!
Otherwise, I think Will is just gonna take over this game.
Yeah, but I am heading that way. Speaking of Cabal Therapy, I was over at JC's House of Cards and I picked up a couple more. So.
Oh, Cabal Therapies, yeah.
Yeah.
So that card's really good with Gitaxian Probe and Young Pyromancer. Actually, in my opinion, that's probably the reason that the Grixis Delver decks are better than any of the other Delver variants, at least right now.
Yeah.
Is the synergy between Gitaxian Probe and Young Pyromancer, Cabal Therapy and Young Pyromancer, and Cabal Therapy and Gitaxian Probe is just so strong. Any 2 of those cards work so well together that it makes your opening draws that much more effective.
Yeah, it's just so miserable too, and just to like pretty much not even lose a guy and getting Cabal Therapy.
Sure, like, the flashback becoming negligible. Yeah,
it's just it's so difficult.
Saw a Brainstorm from Cruse and another Deathrite Shaman coming in for 4.
Man, going aggro with the Deathrite Shaman now.
Yeah.
So that's, but he's in an empty hand now. So.
Yeah, and then at this point, if JC doesn't find he didn't even find a land, so there's no outs here. He's just gonna die to all the tokens.
Yeah. You know, I really like that game too. There was a time whenever I thought, Will wasn't gonna pull it out. It just kind of seemed like JC had a better start than he did. But...
Well, and the mulligan to 5 really hurt Will too.
Oh yeah.
But like I was saying earlier, Will's Young Pyromancers can really dig him out. It's not a full card, the 1/1 token per spell you cast, but it feels like a lot whenever your deck doesn't have a way to deal with a mass of creatures, like Rough Tumble being JC's only real good, clean answer to everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was able to dig himself back into that game. Anyway, we're going to take a minute here to talk about the Birmingham Championship Series. This is a tournament series event starting up this January down in the Birmingham, Alabama area. It consists of 5 qualifying events across the modern, standard, and sealed constructed format. Tournament formats. One sealed and a couple limited. Anyway, that culminates in a 40-person qualifying event. that has some pretty good cash prizes from what I heard. I wasn't able to make it to any of the last ones, but it looked like it was a really big success. Anyway, search Birmingham Champions Series on Facebook for more information. Anyway, we'll go back to the sideboards here. Do you think there's anything that changes post game 2 whenever they kind of know what they might have brought in against each other?
I don't see a lot changing. I was actually surprised to see JC leave some Force of Wills in. Maybe he brought out the Dismembers.
Well, I think being on the draw, Force Will is better because you're always at a tempo mana disadvantage, but you actually have a slight card advantage being on the draw. So Force of Will is a little better there. On the play, I would expect to see JC take some number of Force of Wills out.
Yeah.
Maybe not all of them, but I mean, he's got a Divert, and he's got the Pyroblasts, so he has better counters. Actually, has a pair of Flusterstorms too. All of those are better counter spells, in my opinion, for the rate or for the price than Force of Will. Cruse, on the other hand, he still had his Force of Wills in, and I think on the draw here, he just has to keep them in because, like, again, he has no good way other than Liliana the Veil of dealing with the Tarmogoyf. So if one resolves, he's 2 for 1. He has to use like a block, a creature block, and a lightning bolt, or like a pair of lightning bolts, and these are all just terrible exchanges for him. So
and those we saw the Pyroblast come in with JC last turn.
Right, JC had them, and they were ineffective because I think part of it's sort of a cat and mouse game, right, where you have to try and predict what your opponent's going to do because the Pyroblasts are great against blue spells, but the majority of spells you're boarding out in the sideboarded games here are probably blue. So Force of Wills are coming out. Some number of Dazes can come out. Spell Pierces are marginally effective in some situations. And a lot of the stuff you're bringing in then, like Red Elemental Blast and Liliana the Veil, or on JC's side, he's going to have like Rough Tumble. Like, those spells aren't blue. So you bring in Pyroblast because they're super efficient, but at the same time, then you get stuck with no targets, right? Like, it's...
I mean, do you think Stifle comes out? I almost think it does. I mean, it's situational. You're only messing them up on a land. I mean, if you could catch them on it...
Well, it's tough to say. See, with JC being on the play, I would not take them out. Because that stifles the easiest way to press a tempo advantage, like and to keep your opponent mana screwed, basically. And on the play is when you really want to have that option. So I would cut the Force of Wills and maybe 1 or 2 of the Dazes before I would cut any of the stifles or any of the removal. Like, I would just want all removal and ways to keep my opponent suppressed on mana sources, and then worry about counterspells lastly.
Yeah, and if you did leave in any forces, you can always pitch them if they seem dead at any point.
Right.
And
well, Brainstorm is a hell of a card for fixing when you have a bunch of counterspells you don't need.
That's a good point as well. So you can always just shuffle them away.
Hopefully, anyway.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, we'll head back to the match now, and we've got Game 3 just about underway. It looks like both players have pretty decent hands. We're going to actually see a 7-on-7 for once.
Now, I thought I saw a Flooded Strand in Will Cruse's hand, which seemed strange, but yeah, I mean, it's good for just getting more islands.
Yeah, so it's actually important or worth noting that against decks that might run things like Pithing Needle or Surgical Extraction, if all of your fetch lands, or I'm sorry, if all of the fetchable lands are islands, you want to diversify your fetch lands as much as you can to avoid getting hosed by those cards. And in Will Cruse's case, actually at JC and Will Cruse, both their decks are the same, where all of their dual lands are islands in addition to whatever other land type. So all of their fetch lands can be an assortment like this. Like, they can be Flooded Strands and Polluted Deltas. JC can even run Wooded Foothills if he wants to, because all of his lands are either forests or mountains.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Sometimes you see some players that are on a little bit of a budget do that with the Temur. You used to really see that a lot before the Khans reprints. You'd see players running Wooded Foothills because it was probably the cheapest of the dual lands you could get, the fetch lands that you could get, other than maybe Bloodstained Mire, and it fetched both of your duels. So
yeah, I like that the reprints have made Legacy so much more accessible.
Oh yeah, definitely, because it not only brought down the cost of the onslaught fetches tremendously, it also just brought down the cost of fetch lands in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like Scalding Tarn, Misty Rainforest, Verdant Catacombs, all of those saw a significant price drop after the cons or the conslot lands, if you will, were printed. Now some of those have begun creeping back up. I think I saw that Scalding Tarn was back to over $100 now again, but I think that's a recent response probably to the upcoming Pro Tour, which is the modern format. So it might just be a temporary spike, and we'll see the Scalding Tarns and Misty Rainforest return to something a little more reasonable.
He's cracking his Scalding Tarn.
Yeah, JC's probably, if I had to guess, he's going for a Fork Bolt or a Lightning Bolt, some sort of bolt removal spell to deal with that Delver Secrets before it can flip, and also just so his Mongoose can get through. Currently, it's only a 1/1 Mongoose, and you don't want to trade what is arguably your best threat with your opponent's worst threat. I've actually, because I play Infect in Legacy at most of the events I go to, I've actually seen a fair number of opponents, Temur Delver opponents, that do not prioritize their Mongoose highly enough. They'll just crash it right into a Glistener Elf.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And if it doesn't have Threshold, I'm going to take that trade every opportunity I get because I have no other way to get rid of it. And I just don't feel like they realize or acknowledge that going late into the game, the Mongoose is the best creature in their deck, and they really would like to have it at Threshold before they start just willy-nilly crashing it into things.
Yeah. It's got another
Delver Secrets for Will, although he missed a land drop, so we'll see. There's an end of turn Dismember. This is a little risky in my opinion because it walks right into a Daze, which Cruse may not have them given that he's on the draw. Like it's more likely that he would board them out, but it's still, I don't know. I think unless you've got a big play follow up for the next turn, I don't see a need to just force the Dismember here.
Yeah, I do like to see Cruse go ahead and crack right there too. That's a good time-wise.
Avoid the Stifle, sure. And we've got, is that a Flusterstorm? I think that's a Flusterstorm. Yeah, it is. Yes. So that's the kind of removal exchange you want. You want your cheap counters for their removal and to avoid getting into a lengthy, drawn-out Force of Will Daze battle if you can do it.
That's interesting for JC to go on that attack there because he doesn't have the Threshold yet.
Right, and if I were in Cruse's seat, I would snap off this block immediately.
Yeah,
you're behind on the board, arguably, because you have less. Like your threat isn't as valuable because it's just so much easier to deal with Delver than it is with the Mongoose. This seems like an easy trade unless Cruse's hand is completely reactive and has no other threats.
That's a good point. I mean, he could just bolt him even if he hits the Threshold. I mean, Cruse can take the damage. I mean, the one I don't think is ultimately going to set him too far back. And that's the same thing, too. You got to wonder, what is JC doing by slamming his dude there? I mean, he could just have, again, just a bunch of threats in his hand and not a bunch of reaction.
That's true. And if that's the case, then this attack makes sense. I think Cruse Will is definitely, he's considering the block. Because you just can't ask for a better removal spell than your 1-mana blue creature. You don't get that option very often. This smells like a Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, see, now that's the kind of threat Will does not want to see. Like, you can take your easy trade when it comes, but you still can't deal with the Tarmogoyf. And actually putting creatures in the graveyard, although I guess there already was one, but that if there wasn't, that would have made the Goyf even bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Will needs to find an answer to this Tarmogoyf and quickly.
Yeah, and you're also making
Looks like JC doesn't want him to find an answer.
He's just trying to keep the pressure going.
To fight with a Spell Pierce. Looks like we may have a Daze incoming. Yep, there it is. Will's going to pick up the land. He needs this Brainstorm to resolve, presumably because if he doesn't, he can't. The Tarmogoyf's just going to start clocking him.
Yeah, so you mentioned he didn't have anything even in his sideboard really well to interact with the Goyf.
Not outside of a Liliana. And at this point, Liliana's at least one turn away, so he's going to get hit once.
Yeah.
And probably more.
And then another threat's probably coming down. I wouldn't be surprised to see another Mongoose the next turn that's now going to have Threshold.
Sure, yeah. So, well, that's something I thought of earlier but failed to mention is that JC may trade his Mongoose and his Dismember for that early Delver just to try and fulfill threshold requirements. Like, it makes your Mongoose better even if it does sort of inefficiently use your spells early, because Delver matchups aren't always... Ugh, there's another Tarmogoyf. Boy, things are looking bad.
Yeah.
I would not want to be in Will Cruse's seat right now.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is... trading resources earlier to maintain sort of a tempo advantage can be relevant if you have enough creatures that you can afford the losses.
Mm-hmm.
So Will's got a Wasteland. So even if he drew a Liliana, he couldn't cast it. Well, I guess with the Deathrite he could. But short of that, he's gonna have trouble. Oh. JC's going to stifle the Wasteland activation, preserving his Volcanic Island, which I guess you can't really ask for a better use of stifle than that right now, because you're not getting any more fetch lands.
I was surprised to see Cruse not go for the Tropical Island instead of to cut him off the green.
I think in this case he was just trying to cut him off of untapped mana.
Oh,
he wanted both of these lightning bolts that killed the Tarmogoyf to resolve, and if you take away his mana source, he can't play a Spell Pierce or Flusterstorm.
I see.
So, yeah, no, normally you would like to take them off of the colored mana that they have less of, but in this case, I think it was just trying to fight over. Yeah, it looks like you were right. JC just has a grip full of creatures and is willing to trade because he's got nothing to lose, right? He can trade creatures and still have backups.
Yeah. Now, Cruse took care of one of the Goyfs with the double bolt, but
that's exactly the exchange we were talking about though earlier. That JC doesn't mind if Will wants to burn all of his removal on a single creature and he's got all these backups. It doesn't do him any good.
Yeah, and now he's further away from getting rid of that Mongoose as well, because that bolt would have been really great there as well.
Well, you can't target it. So Mongoose has Shroud, but
I didn't even know that. That's terrible.
No, yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. Making it the best threat in the deck is it has Shroud, and then its Threshold makes it a 3/3. So it's extremely hard to deal with. Deathrite Shaman goes a good ways towards maintaining the graveyard, but in this case, it looks like there are no more lands in JC's graveyard, so he can't work it that way.
Yeah,
he's really just got to attack the spells, and he doesn't have. Yeah, he doesn't have enough spare mana to keep up with JC's graveyard building, like between Ponders and Brainstorms and stuff.
I feel like right here, Will Cruse wants a young Pyromancer to stay in the game.
Oh, a Pyromancer would be tremendous, because Tarmogoyf not having Trample means that if you can generate enough tokens, you can just sort of chump block for a while until you build an overwhelming board presence. But it doesn't appear as though he's got it. It looks like he might have just a counterspell or two in hand, and that's... Counterspells don't do a lot of good when the spells have already been cast.
Yeah, I've always said that blue is like one of those colors that is really good. It can deal with anything before it's on the board, but once it's out there, you're just sort of, effed. I guess you can bounce it. But...
And Will has a third Deathrite Shaman, which in this situation is just horrid. It's not doing much of anything right now. He doesn't have the mana to activate them all, and there's barely any fetch lands to eat for spare mana, so really they're just 1/2s with mostly irrelevant game text, which is not what you want in the game of Legacy. and being at 8 life here, I don't imagine Will can afford to take too many hits from a Tarmogoyf.
Oh yeah, because how far is JC away from just pulling bolts at this point? I don't even think you bolt the. Any of the Deathrite Shamans.
No,
so many of them, you just go straight to the face.
They're going to be forced to chump block here soon enough.
So I'm like, how far is he away from just burning him out?
So I'm not sure if that Tarmogoyf... I guess it went unblocked, and end of turn Will ate a card out of JC's graveyard to keep him under threshold. But again, the Deathrites just don't stack up well against Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, they're great early, but at this point in the game...
the third one was not what he wanted. I agree with you. A young Pyromancer is a lot more value here. Now, this Misty Rainforest would allow Will to go find a tropical island. Yeah. If he wanted to start,
taking up his life.
And to try and hopefully get all the creatures out of graveyards to shrink the Tarmogoyf. And there's it looks like a Guru altar.
Oh, wow.
It's altered to look like a Guru land, like the basics, the really expensive Guru basics. Anyway, I think now he's got the green mana, he'll probably make use of it. Although he's probably still forced into these terrible chump blocks.
Yeah.
Boy, and Ponder's exactly the card Will doesn't want to see, because that's the kind of thing that can build JC's graveyard while at the same time providing him with more value, more cards, more selection. Although apparently there was nothing good there. But I think the combination of the fetch land, this Ponder, and whatever he finds off it could make it so that he maintains threshold, and then the Mongoose can also attack, and that's just even more pressure that Cruse is under.
Yeah.
I don't like Will's position right now.
Yeah.
He needs a young Pyromancer and some Gitaxian probes or something really, really quickly.
Yeah, his life total is at risk here as well. You know, I mean, it's, you know, again, we were talking about the bolts.
Looks like JC found a Brainstorm, another spell to cast. Yeah, this is just like I said, this is exactly what Will doesn't want to see, because he can't take JC off of threshold now, so the Mongoose is a big threat. Can't really see JC's hand, but presumably he's probably going to find something awesome, because with all those Brainstorms and Ponders, you get to look at so many cards.
Yeah. So the Goyf's 5/6 right now?
Probably a 4/5. I don't think there's any enchantments, planeswalkers, or artifacts. It's usually usually in these Delvermirs, it's just the standard 4/5 Goyf, which is still pretty good for 2 mana. Best 2 mana creature in the game, right?
Yep, there we go.
JC's digging up yet another volcanic island. I guess this means that one of the cards he drew off the Brainstorm he needs the red mana for, I guess.
I'm thinking bolts. Either that or Pyroblast.
Could be Lightning Bolt, could be Pyroblast. Maybe he just needs a shuffle and doesn't need any more green mana because he's already got all his green creatures.
Yeah.
We'll find out soon enough, since I can't imagine we're going to go through this turn without some more attacks. We got confirmation that there are enough lands in the graveyard. Oi, and a Ponder. Will looks despondent. He can't keep this goose. The goose is loose, as they say. It has met threshold, and it's staying there.
You've got 4 lands, and you've got just a super low curve. It's just.
Oh, and JC found a wasteland to take out the Singleton Tropical Island, forcing the Deathrite activation pre-combat, so he can't even do the triple block your guy threat. And his last card's a Stifle. Man, Will is just taking it from all angles. Wait, that's terrible. So he's gonna be pressed into at least 1 chump block this turn.
Yeah, we can't see the look on Will's face, but I'm pretty sure it's
not one of enjoyment right now.
Yeah, he's not happy.
There goes the tropical island in all of its guru-looking glory. Hey, man, here comes the attack, I think. Yep. So, like I said, Will is going to be forced into at least 1 chump block, because that's 7 coming at him.
Yeah.
And at this point, you would think you have to block the Tarmogoyf, because otherwise it puts you dead to a Lightning Bolt. All right.
Well, Will's trying to stay in the game here, though.
So he's going to exile a land and a Tarmogoyf. So he's using the Deathrite Shaman to exile Misty Rainforest and get a green mana, and using that to exile Tarmogoyf, so that he falls. He took just 3 damage, but he gained 2 back, so he should fall to. Was he at 6? Or he was at 7. I guess maybe we got our life totals updated a little wrong, but in any event, he's at a precariously low life total, and that draw step didn't look like anything too important. I don't know what JC's gonna, or I'm sorry, what Will's gonna be able to do to get out of this. If he doesn't find a young Pyromancer, I don't see how he can.
Yeah, I feel like it's young Pyromancer or bust.
I suppose Tasigur could do a lot of work, but
that's true.
As a one-of, it's pretty hard to find that reliably. This is where a Gurmag Angler would be a lot better too. Like if he had a Gurmag Angler, it could hold off the entire team, whereas Tasigur can only really stop the Mongoose. Tarmogoyf can still crash into that if he absolutely wants to.
Yeah.
There's a hard cast Gitaxian Probe. don't think it found anything of relevance. It looked maybe like a wasteland, which at this point isn't doing a whole lot. JC doesn't need mana. He just needs attack steps. I'm not sure what else is in his hand, but it obviously isn't doing a whole lot. JC brings the team. There's another Tarmogoyf jump block. And another Eat Your Land / probably a creature. Sure, so Will's going to take 3, gain 2, so he should be down to 5. It looks, like I said, it looks like we've got the life totals wrong there, but in any event, he's still under a lot of pressure, and there's another Mongoose. So I don't see how Will gets out of this.
Yeah, I feel like he's dead here on board. I mean, even with like a young Pyromancer, I mean, how are you going to be able to play enough spells to really?
You'd have to string a bunch of cantrips, and he's throwing in the towel. Obviously, he's beat off of all those green creatures that can't be dealt with.
Yeah.
Anyway, that does it for round 1. JC takes it 2-1.
Yeah,
it's a pretty good way to start the tournament.
You have 2 really skilled Delver players, kind of showing you how
Delver is done.
How it's done.
And I think that was a good showcase of what a Delver mirror looks like. Anyway, stick around, and we'll be back for round 2 in just a minute.